In the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 13, we find this wonderful verse that says, "Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men." Thank you. You may be seated. Very rapidly, our announcement. I think, first of all, those of you who made it to Bible studies Friday, it was an awesome time. I just want you to know that we have resumed Bible studies on Fridays. And I pray that you all get to make it, because we plan on having some fun. There will be many surprises on Fridays. I promise you that much. But also, the last Sunday of the month, we are inviting you, following the second service, to our annual Thanksgiving dinner. If you have yet to attend one, I'm going to encourage you to make plans to be here. It's not just going to be it's not the fellowship team taking care of it, but it's going to be the men of this congregation providing the food, the drinks, and it's always a treat for every member of this congregation. I ask you once again, join us, or bring a friend, invite your families, because this is going to be something special this year. There will be many surprises. I'm going to ask, is there someone here for the first time? Is there anyone here for the first time? If there isn't, I believe that you all are friends and members of this congregation. I'm going to welcome you once again to Shekinah Worship Center. If you would allow me roughly 15 minutes this morning to go through this verse very quickly. Just want you to know also, this month I have been blessed to only preach one service. First service I preached. The second service we have a theme for the whole entire month. So I'm going to ask you once again to please listen to the second service. It is a wonderful theme. It is living a spirit-filled life. The book of Ephesians, from verse 15, and you can reach as far as Ephesians 6, verse 24. And I believe that last Sunday will be the conclusion of the theme for the month. When we look at Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, there's a word that is very common. I believe that in every kitchen across the spectrum, you will find salt. In every industrialized country, And in every third world country, you will find salt. But oftentimes we see a word, but we never bother to dig deeper into the meaning of this word. And I took the time to probe into the meaning of salt and also the origin of this wonderful spice. Too much of it can make you sick, but it is very good. But if you read the history on salt as a precious and portable commodity, you will find that nations and peoples have clashed in wars about salt. In fact, it is a proven and known fact that Roman soldiers were paid their wages not in silver or gold coins, or even in coins of the common currency, but it was in salt. It's a little bit of things for you to know. Did you also know that when you look at the word, again, you see a word, you have to analyze it, the etymology of the word, the roots of the word for you to understand it better. You see also the word salary. The word salary, the word sell, derive from the word salt. In fact, in the Bible, there are almost 50 verses dedicated referencing the word salt. But this morning, we come across this word salt, where in Matthew 5, verse 13, Jesus offers something very interesting here. He offers both an indicative description as well as an indispensable prescription. So let's look at this passage a little bit closer. What we find then, as I said earlier, it's the indicative description that it indicates that you are the salt of the earth. So our title for this morning is We Are Salt. And when you analyze the word for a moment, or the sentence for a moment, it says that you are the salt of the earth. You, who are the you here? Who is Jesus referring to here? To look at the word itself, or the meaning or the context of what Jesus is saying here, you have to go back to Matthew chapter 5, verse 1. Because don't forget, in Matthew 5, verse 1, we read that now when he saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him and said to them, let's pause here for a moment. Who is the you here Christ is referring to? And it is incorrectly assumed by many that Jesus intended these words for the crowds. That's not the case. Because seated on the mountaintop, but Matthew tells us specifically that Jesus himself was simply addressing to his disciples that he took up the mountainside with him and telling them that you are the salt of the earth. Jesus says to these people, you are the salt of the earth. Notice carefully, this is an indicative rather than an imperative statement. Grammatically, it is an indicative, not an imperative. But also you need to understand, Jesus does not say be salt, or you must be salt, or you should be salt. It would be nice to be salt. No. If you are the blessed ones mentioned in verses 3 to 10 of Matthew 5, if you are truly my disciples, then by the very definition, you are the salt of the earth. Now, in other words, you and I, if we truly claim to be followers of Jesus, cannot excuse ourselves from being who we mention by definition. We cannot say thanks, but no thanks. We cannot say that we don't mind being a follower of Jesus, but that we refuse to be salt. You are either a follower of Jesus or you are not a follower of Jesus. If you are a follower of Jesus, then salt is what you are. Whether you ask for it or not, whether you like it or not, you are salt. And that's one of the reasons the tense that he used is simply an indicative. It is something that is indicating to you this is what you are. Now, I know this morning and next Sunday we'll explore this verse, right? But you are salt of the earth, verse 13. This must have been an amazing thing for the people who heard it. For the people who heard it. For they were among the world's, they were not amongst the world powerful or the elite of the world, or in any way in a position to think of themselves as able to impact the world. However, Jesus knew something about both the world and them. It's not always readily apparent. Now let's look at it for a second. Just another 7 minutes, right? 5 minutes. Then we next week we pick it up. You are the salt of the earth. This statement reveals something about the world. You are tempted to begin immediately talking about the people and the fact that Jesus said you are the salt of the earth. The first thing we must do, we must understand that whatever the statement means, we must first understand the clear implication about the world. You must also understand what Jesus knew about the world before you can understand about salt. Jesus clearly implies the world is full of decay, things that lead to illness and death. The world has something in it called sin. So which is loose and it is a rampage around the world. The tendency of the world is toward which is evil and bad. The world is corrupt and offensive, is polluted, decayed, and dying. There are a few verses that gives us the biblical concept of the world. And that's where we end for this morning. When we look at Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 and 6, it says, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. And in verse 6, the Lord regretted that he had made humans being on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Now, if you understand the implication about the world in Jesus' statements, his intention for us as salt become clear. Salt works because it is fundamentally different from that to which is applied, just as the Beatitudes taught us. We are to be different from the world only when we are different. Now, can we really have the effect that God or Jesus had in mind? That's something that we need to explore next week. Well, we need to explore, you are the salt of the earth, reveals something about God's people. Who are we as God's people? What should be our standard as salts as we walk the streets, as we walked into a classroom, as we walked into our jobs? What should be our standards? I pray the Lord guide you, and the Lord guide me this week as we sought to dissect this simple yet powerful verse. May God bless you.